All right, welcome everyone. Chris Petri here. We're having so much fun. We're creating a wonderful still life painting, and what we're doing is we're actually just going to key in on the process of creating a still life painting right from the beginning when you're doing your pencil drawing, choosing your paper, and also the different iterations of creating the pencil drawing, which we start out with a preliminary sketch, and then we go on top of the preliminary sketch with a contour drawing, pencil drawing. And then after that, we get ready, prepped, and we get our paints ready, and we start painting. And then we cover also the alla prima method of painting, which is an exclusive method that we use here on my channel. We also use the glazing technique of painting, and so those are the two main techniques I use. I also have my book. You can always check out my book on Amazon. It goes over both the glazing technique and the alla prima technique, and it has tons and tons, over 70 of my best paintings in my book. You can kind of go onto YouTube and actually check out my book and see all the pages in the book. So you'll see all the paintings in there and all the descriptions and everything like that. So great book to pick up if you're just starting watercolor, and if it's your first time here, great to have you. Glad you're painting along, having fun. If you're just watching, fantastic. Watching videos will help you learn tremendously the watercolor medium, because it's a lot going on at one time for this type of medium, the watercolor painting. So we're going to get into all the details that you need. Just again, a cursory glance of this type of painting style of the still life painting. We actually will get into other videos in the future, in the next coming months, where I'll go over much more in-depth processes and procedures that you'll use to create a full painting. Here we just cover most of everything, but we kind of abbreviated this video so it doesn't become a 3-hour video. We're going to try to keep it like an hour, hour and a half at most here on this one. But you can kind of see all of the processes that we go through to get this style painting completed. So I won't leave anything out. That's really important. And then some of the real finer details we'll get into in further videos. And if you do want to see more of the really nitty-gritty details of something like this on these type of paintings, just give me a shout out in the comment section below. Just type in, say, yeah, Chris, I'm looking forward to seeing some videos on the real, drill down on the real details of doing the full still life paintings, which would be completing everything. So here you can see, again, I didn't complete everything, but we did most of the meat and potatoes of this style painting. But again, if you like this type of style painting, the still lifes, flower bouquets, things like that, just give me a shout. Let me know you really like it. I'll do more videos, much more videos on this. And we also have tons of other content on my channel. I always mention that. I have everything watercolor, and we do boats, landscapes, seascapes, beach scenes, a little bit of figure work, paintings, portrait paintings, a little bit here and there, tiny bit of that. Lots of city scenes, beautiful country scenes, barns, all kinds of fun stuff, boats. Again, everything watercolor here. So enjoy this video. We're going to get started in just a second. All right, welcome everyone. Chris Petri here. Thanks so much for coming by. We're actually going to do a quick, kind of a cursory glance at doing some still life paintings, drawing and painting. And I think in the very near future, we'll do more of a drill down and take more time and maybe create a longer format video on this one, where we'll cover maybe the different items we're going to draw and paint on the still life. Maybe we'll practice each item individually, like let's say like a lime or a shorebird or an apple or a lemon or some flowers. Maybe we'll paint each one of those things first, draw and paint those things first, then once we're done doing that, then we'll go in and draw the whole thing together and then paint it. So, but this would just be a quick run through of what my particular process is for doing a still life painting like this. Here we have a table, a little patterned tablecloth there, some colorful stripes on there. Of course, a beautiful bouquet of flowers right in the center, and then we have some. My favorite things I like, the apples, lemons, lime. We have a pepper. I have a cappuccino cup. We have a shorebird. We have a mustard jar. And so we have a lot of good, interesting things going on this. I might put in a paintbrush there too, maybe an artist brush in the front here. But for the most part, I think this is like what I'll say we'll do in the future, in the very near future, something very similar to this. But for right now, we'll just work with this. And this is actually what you see here on the phone screen, that's directly across from me. So my art table I'm standing at, directly across from me, I have a table set up across from me, and then I have these items here all set up on that, and then I have like a spotlight over the top of it, just shining down light on top of the subject matter. So that would be the first thing, is maybe getting some of those items, or you could do anything you want, just a few items, maybe a bouquet of flowers and a few items, or just a bouquet of flowers is fine. White tablecloth's great, maybe a white background, some foam board if you want to put like a white background to keep things more simple. I'll probably leave this background just as if there was a white wall behind here, or a white tablecloth behind the scene. But for the most part, we're going to keep it simple on this. Again, just going through the whole process from start to finish. So the first thing we do is we get our stuff set up on a table with maybe a white tablecloth, so forth. Once we have that, we'll start out. We'll have, I'll just do a preliminary sketch. So we're going to pretend this is my finished watercolor paper here. And I usually get a start with some pencil lines to just definitely create the border of the painting, so that I know exactly where I'm working within. And then this way I can judge things, like if I know this line is a little bit away from the edge of the photograph, well, that's how I'm going to want to draw it over here. So I would start my line over here. So what I'll do is I'll start from the center, and we'll do what's called the preliminary sketch. So this will be the first step, would be the preliminary sketch, where we're just going to do a light kind of like outline of what the painting is going to look like in a drawing format, in the pencil line format. So here I'm going to look at that and generally say, okay, about center of the painting is the top of the vase. So I can say, all right, about the center of the painting, maybe a little bit over from center, is the top of the vase. So I might just start out with a pencil line there, like this. And then I would just casually, again, we're just doing a light preliminary drawing here. So I'm just going to want to kind of see where everything's going to land. So I see my red rose is right to the very, very top of the picture frame, or the picture frame that I've set up here with the pencil line. So we have that up here, like that. And there's a few more leaf forms there, and then there's another white rosebud there, and another white rose here, maybe there, like that. And so I just, again, casually, lightly sketching it, not really fully getting every detail, just sort of some more leaf forms over here. And so far I look at and I stop for just a minute and say, okay, I look so far and I see, yeah, everything is sort of, shaping up inside this picture frame we created with our pencil line about where it has to be. So now from this point, I would keep going and just, again, continue on with my vase. And then I might come over here, and then I notice, all right, on this might be the bottom of the vase here. I notice the lemons here. Then I might travel over here and just get the apple in here, like that, and come over here. And then I say, all right, here is the mustard jar. And then there's a shadow there, maybe a little shadow I draw in. Cappuccino cup here, like that. Okay, and then over here, the shorebird. So I'll just kind of do a quick oval. And then the shorebird here, I'll make the stem. And again, just quick. I'm not doing I'm going to go over this a second time with our, I'll do a final drawing over the top of this. But this will be just my preliminary to make sure everything's in the right spot. And then we have over here the lime, like this. Okay, that looks pretty good. A little shadow there. Then we come over here, and then I'll do my some nice tasty green pepper, like that, fresh green pepper. And there's a little shadow under the pepper, like so. And that's about it. Maybe I finish up the vase here, like so. So that's the only other thing I might do, is say, let me get some lines going for the back of the table. I might just make the back of the table like a straight line across, like this. That I think would be, I'm happy with a straight line, level line across. In the picture, you can see it maybe has a little bit of an angle. I'll just go with a straight line across for the back of the table again. And then the tablecloth lines, maybe I'll start out with and take this first tablecloth line and say, well, it starts out right at the back of the vase and it comes through about here. So then I'll just get that line in, and I'll make it wider at the foreground here, the very closest edge to us. And then over here there's another line that goes through where the pepper is here. And maybe you're not going to draw every single line that you see. Maybe you might just draw 3 or 4 of these, like that. And maybe another one here. The next one here would be right about here, like that. And then maybe one more over here, like that. So now as you can see, and I think I'll go with one more here, like that. That's really the first thing we can do. Get that preliminary sketch in, kind of get everything laid out, looking just the way you want it. And again, you don't have to get as detailed as this. You can leave the tablecloth just white tablecloth, not worry about the stripes on the table. There's some more lines here that come across, you know, so maybe I'll put those in here. And then there's another one across here. And so this would just be so that when I go in to do my final drawing next, I have those kind of established where they pretty much are. And I drew them pretty much parallel like this. I didn't angle them so much like this. So here in my photograph, you can see there's angles. You can do that too. But here I just wanted to keep it more simple. Keep the back of the table level across the painting, straight across. You can measure it if you want to have a ruler, and you can take a ruler and just, you know, you could always measure it and just say, okay, this is 3 inches. Come over here, 3 inches. So you can make marks, 3 inches here, 3 inches here, so that you know you have pretty much a straight line. You can get a longer ruler and go across and get more of a straight line. If you like more straighter lines, feel free, you know. I think when you draw a lot and you're practicing a lot of drawing, you're probably going to you'll probably draw a little more with freehand versus using rulers and things, but also use rulers. You know, whenever you think you might need to get I might need a better straight line here for my shorebird, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to get a straighter line for the stem, for the pedestal here, for the shorebird. So you're the artist, you're going to figure out kind of where you're going to have things, but this is basically the first part, the preliminary sketch. And then we could just preliminary sketch. And then what we'll do is we'll go over with a darker pencil line next. So I'll take a quick break, get a glass of water, and I'll be right back. And what we'll do is we'll go over with the final drawing, the pencil drawing, over the top of this. So this would be very, very light. Your first pencil drawing, the preliminary sketch, super light, and you're not concerned about accuracy so much, just kind of you want to get the overall where everything is within the picture frame, so that we don't end up with maybe a small tiny vase and little tiny fruits and, you know, cups and saucers and peppers. You know, if everything is kind of, we want to make sure we have everything filling up this entire space that we have. Our paper, this is an 8.5 by 11 printer paper actually that we're practicing on right here and going over the preliminary part of this drawing and painting. So again, we're going to be back in just a second and we'll do our final drawing over the top of our preliminary sketch. Okay, be right back in a second. All right, so we're going to pick back up again. We'll do our final drawing now. And let me just say, no worries. If you find that your preliminary sketch looks really good and you're satisfied with that, you can certainly start painting at this point and work right on top of your preliminary sketch. And that's if you've created it on watercolor paper, of course. I am using, again, printer paper just because, you know, we're going to kind of, I already have my final drawing. I did a preliminary sketch and a final drawing on top of some watercolor paper underneath this. But I just wanted to kind of start out the whole process by kind of just, you know, going over it in a more, you know, in a real, I guess, slow detailed format of showing each of the steps as we go. So now the next thing is, assuming this is very, very light sketches, extremely light pencil sketches for your preliminary sketch, just so you get everything correct in the spots you need for the most part, then you might be going over with your drawing. So your regular pencil line drawing. And then I would just refer again to my photograph here. And I'll start here where we started before with the vase. And now, since we already have everything in the right spot for the most part, you can make changes as you go now to when you're doing your final drawing. But if you see everything shaping up and looking good, there's no reason why you can't you're just like tracing what you've created. Basically, you're contour drawing, which means you're not really drawing isolated items as you're going. You're kind of just continuing your drawing in your pencil lines from all of your items to the next, like this, in your shadow here. And I would usually tend to stay within, I would probably stay here on this area of the drawing the flowers first. I would do the bouquet of flowers first. And I might not do as much detail here within the flowers. And these are red. This is a red rose up here, like so. There might be a little bit of detail there. There's some green leaf forms in here, a stem. I would leave white paper showing through the center of your bouquet of your flowers. I wouldn't try to, when you're painting, I wouldn't fill in everything. So we have a bud here and some more leaf forms. But again, I'm just working through doing my contour drawing. And that's just trying to get the details as we go. I get the stem there. There's another stem here. Okay. And that's how I keep moving through. And then we have some more leaf forms here. And there might be a leaf form I add. You can add some leaf forms if you want to as you're drawing. If you see something you want to add in, that's fine. Or if you want to leave something out, that's fine as well. That's the freedom of working with the preliminary sketch and contour drawing as you're going. Your preliminary sketch is that rough idea of everything, and then this is your more final work that you're going to do with your pencil lines. And then I continue here. Then I'll come over here. And this works out good that I use my ruler. So now when I do my final drawing, I've done that ruler with the pencil line. I'll come over here. We'll do the line, the shadow. I can do some of the line like that, the patterns on the white tablecloth, and I can just go straight back like this. I can maybe pick up my line back here at the back, and the same over here. But for the most part, I like to keep that flow going, which is the fun of contour drawing. You're sort of taking a trip through your painting, following the lighter preliminary sketch first that you created, and this way you can kind of move a little bit faster and with more of a tempo and a rhythm, and that translates into like a really beautiful drawing and eventually a painting too as well when you create the painting over top of the lines. And so this kind of a method, the two-part two-part method of preliminary sketch and contour drawing, final contour drawing, is you sort of avoid focusing on one spot for too long, or erasing and kind of getting hung up on maybe an angle that's not just perfect. Like, don't worry about it. Get in there. And once you have this, again, the preliminary sketch in and everything looks good, and you can make adjustments to your preliminary sketch if you want before you go in and do this final contour drawing. And then you're even more secure, so that when you are going in for your final drawing like we're doing right now, you are all set. You just basically are using what you drew first in your preliminary sketch as a guide, so that you can move your pencil and just keep moving on through everything as you're going. And again, you're not getting kind of that issue where maybe we're like trying to like work too much on one item and say, oh, that doesn't look right, it's not round enough, or I made it too big or too small, and then it's like erasing and then erasing again and going over it again, and then thinking, oh, I didn't do it right that time, so next thing you know, we have like a lot of pencil erasing and focusing in on one item. This keeps you from doing that using the preliminary sketch. And again, contour drawing will keep you from getting too focused on one part of your drawing, and you kind of like free flow through the drawing. And it's not as important to get everything perfect when you're drawing, but just to have the fun of flowing through your drawing with the pencil lines and just connecting up everything that you've created first. So if you are going to make some corrections and get things more perfect, is whatever way you would like to see it, that would be in your preliminary sketch when you have just very, very super light lines, because then it's easier to erase and lift up and make adjustments. All right, so we've got it. That's pretty much the whole enchilada of putting together your pencil drawing for your watercolor painting for this still life. We covered everything up to this point. The next point will be going in and doing some painting. We'll have fun with that next. And what I'll do is I'll just lift this off, and we'll work on our watercolor paper, which I have set up and taped down to my board. And it's a little bit larger, so I'll zoom out a little bit. But we'll get to that in just a second. Again, I'll take another quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, so now we're going to get set up to do our work on our watercolor paper. I'll move the phone out for a second here. And we'll peel off our printer paper that we did our sketch on. All right, so this is the larger watercolor paper. This is about a 15 by 15 or 16 by 16 paper. I'll see if I can zoom back. There we go. All right, good. All right, so we zoom back. So this is the watercolor paper, Fabriano, extra white, rough paper. And we'll get our phone back on cam here. I'll try to set it up so it's like so. And you can see we did the same exact thing. I did a preliminary sketch first, and then I went over with that darker pencil line on this. And this is the final drawing, the contour drawing. And next, just have our palette, our standard palette we always use, the Schmincke palette. I'll put it over here maybe, like this. That should be fine. And again, we're just going to do a quick, I'm not going to really drill down on every bit of time-consuming thing that I would normally do. I'm going to try to just get an overall idea here as we go. I might just do a little bit of painting and not like create the whole painting itself, but just kind of talk about how I go about doing the painting. And again, this was a video here. My main goal was to sort of go through each of the bits of process that I go through for my still life paintings. And then, again, in the very near future, we will do a full comprehensive tutorial on the still life painting that we're doing here with flowers. Okay, so I'll probably... Okay, so I have a brush here. I have to find some water. I have a spritzer bottle here. I'll use some bottled water for my water. And I use I keep my water container to the right, but this is like a really nice rubberized water container. I keep to the right over here. It's off camera. And so I have that set up. I have paper towels. I usually trim some paper towels down to just clean off my palette every once in a while. If I have too much paint on there and too many colors going on, too many mixes of colors, I'll take some paper towel and clean the palette. I have tissues. I always keep tissues on hand. I use these. I hold this in my hand while I'm painting. And usually I rinse off my brush. And after I rinse off my brush in the water container, I usually might tap just a little bit of water off my brush onto a tissue. You can also set up a sponge next to your water container. And you've been, most of you probably that are watching, are regular viewers of my channel. So this is kind of maybe just a little bit of extra things you're kind of hearing me talk about, just because I know there's some newer people coming in. And so we'll try to mix in everything for everybody. But as everyone knows too, if you've been on my channel for quite a while, thanks for continuing to come by and work with me and work with all of us here. I try to drill down on all the details all the time, so that I'm kind of always mentioning them, and this way everyone kind of will incorporate, whatever so you're the artist, whatever you feel you want to incorporate into your regimen for your painting, then you'll do that. Some things you might like to do, some things you might not do, but I always will try to mention what I do, and this way you'll just have that, in your mind, that you're kind of knowing on my side of things what I'm doing here. And so again, we have the spritzer bottle to just, if the paints get a little dry, you just do a couple little quick spritzes of water. And that's pretty much the setup, the colors. I have really lots of videos. And if you're here for the first time, by the way, welcome. It's great to have you. I'm so happy that you're stopping by and maybe looking at watercolor for the first time, enjoying the visual enjoyment of it all, and then also too thinking about maybe picking up some brushes and some paints and some paper and pencil and starting to do a little bit of work yourself. It's really fun. It's a great medium. It's lots of fun, excitement. You can bring it anywhere you want to go, working in your house, traveling, vacations, weekend getaways, wherever you want to paint. You can go out in the backyard. You can go to the park. You can basically take watercolor wherever you want to go. It's very light. You can transport everything real easily. You can shrink down just bring little small sketchbooks with a smaller palette than this and just have some real great fun. So we'll get into other videos like that too, where we go out and do some plein air painting too. But let's get a start here. So I'll usually start in the bokeh area, and I'll start with the darks, because usually that's my kind of go-to method is doing the alla prima method. Alla prima method means basically just starting in one place, painting, and then working through the whole painting at one time. And when I do that, I also start with the darker tones, the darker paint. So I'm going to do some darks first to get started. And I might do a shadow of the rim of the mason jar here. I rinse off my brush, and maybe I'll pick up some olive green. So these are different greens I use. This is sap green, olive green, chromium of oxide, which is a really nice green, and also viridian. So we have lots of fun greens here to work into our painting. We can add some yellow, make more of a lighter green. And although I am starting with the darks first, I will, work some of the lights too at the same time. You can make brush strokes that indicate like forms and shapes and lines on your leaf forms if you want. Maybe a little bit of a darker green here. So I mix in some burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, maybe a little bit of cerulean blue, and then add in some sap green, some viridian green, and then again we have some really nice darks there, and so I'll look at my bouquet and kind of see where the darks that I'm looking at where they are. And I'll just try to place the paint. So I get the paint onto the palette. And you can see the paint in my palette is basically straight paint out of the tube. And then just put into the palette so that I can see the colors that I'm using, the selections. But I'm not putting a ton of water in there. You can see there's not big puddles. Like, you're obviously not seeing a lot of this type of thing, where there's all that puddles of water. I'm not doing that at all. Especially when we're doing alla prima style painting, which we're doing now. And we're creating the darker darks. So usually when you're creating darks in your painting, that's usually almost straight paint a lot of times. Like, you're using a lot of paint and just a little bit of water. Then when you start getting into some areas where you want some lighter lights, you add a little more water to your mixes and to your colors. But that's kind of one of the main keys that I always try to emphasize is trying to have the water ratio with your paint mixture just right. So for the different parts of the painting that you're creating. So here we'll paint around our white flower, our white rose there. And when we paint around it with some greens, it'll appear. We'll make some shapes around it. That might be the stem area, like that. There might be a little bit of a darker bit of stem there, and then here it gets a little bit lighter. And we have the stem there, like so. Okay, again, working the darker tones that you can see in here, tonal values, the darker tonal values within the bouquet. And I'll continue to look in here and see some sap green. And maybe I'll go with here I might go with a little more water. Go with a little bit of a lighter leaf form there, as well as here. And then maybe take a little bit of the darks, maybe a little bit of blue mixed in there, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of cerulean blue, and then the green, of course, maybe some viridian mixed in there. And we'll get a little bit of the shadowy green in there. It might be a little darker. Some light and shadow working in here. Then maybe we have some stems here, like that. Maybe we go with a couple splashes here and there, just to give a little bit of something happening besides the leaves, and stems will have a little splash or two. And then maybe we'll pick up some of that yellow, cadmium yellow lemon, mixed with some green. And we have a bit of a light, bright green over here. And we'll do a little more of that up here too. So I'll try to start to think about, if I'm adding this like brighter green here, it's on the painting now, on the paper. Let me get some more of that here and there, right? We don't want to add just one color in one spot and not repeat it. You always want to repeat your colors. So if you mix a really like a nice, lovely light green like this, like a lively green, definitely find a couple spots, add it in there. Even if it's just an indication of a couple leaf forms or something like that, just do it. Get it in there so you know you have it. And I will do the same thing here. Start to put a little bit of that color in the vase, like that. And we're coming along really nicely. I think we'll take another quick break. We've done quite a bit of painting now. We've got a lot of good darks here for our dark leaf forms and some of our bright leaf forms too as well. We have some bright leaf forms out in the light. There's some light and shadow, mostly coming from here across. But the light's kind of mysterious in this. It breaks through and shines through the different undulations of the flowers in the vase. So you get some light highlights of bright light on the leaf forms on the right side of the vase over here, as well as in the center of the vase. And then, of course, over here, we're going to see lots of light in the tops of these flowers here. So we have some nice darks to start out the painting. Again, we're talking about the technique of the doing alla prima technique, painting everything at one time and starting out with the darker shapes and colors first. And of course, starting in the most predominant area of interest, which is the vase of flowers for the most part, here. And then we'll start in this section, and then we'll work our way out throughout the rest of the painting. But we'll move at a quicker pace, again, just to save on a little bit of time. So just so you're kind of seeing the overall, again, process, kind of a condensed version of a process we'll do in the future too, as well. We'll get more details in the future for doing a painting of this, type, the still life painting. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll kind of just work through some of the flowers up here, the beautiful white and red roses here. And then we'll also work down into this section here. Okay, we'll be right back. All right, so now we're just going to pick back up again and let's give a spritz to our paint. Sometimes our paint needs a little bit of a spritz here just to... It dries a little bit sometimes. The top layer of the paint dries a little bit when it's sitting for a little while. And I did take about a half an hour break for lunch. So it did dry a little bit. So we have that, a little bit of water. Maybe I'll just do a quick cleanup here on the palette. And let's see, maybe we'll work in a couple of the flowers here. Yeah, we'll get that started. So what I'll do is we'll take some cerulean blue. And I like to take a paper towel or tissue and just hold it in my hand. And then when I rinse off my brush over on the right here, I just tap off a little bit of water. And this way I have not too much water flooding into the palette. And some French ultramarine blue. And a little bit of green, sap green. So just mix up a little bit of some cool colors, basically. Cool. Green is cool. I consider green, blue, cool. My cool colors. And then what I'll do is a little more cerulean blue. And what I'll do is I'll negative shape paint, which is painting around an object to have the object appear. So I'm going to paint around the petals of this white rose right here. A little bit there. Maybe a little bit here. I just move my brush around. I use the Charles Reed Skoda brushes, travel brushes. This is size number 10, and they come in like a 3-pack. So these are just great brushes, all around phenomenal brushes. They last so long. I've had these for like 5 years, and they still have just excellent quality. So I like to use these a lot, the travel brushes here. And I'll do a little splashing here just to have a little bit of the color maybe work out into the background a little bit like that. So now I'm starting to get a bit of a shape for the flowers here. And then there's some green over here too. There's a green leaf form. So we'll go back again and maybe mix up some green up here. Maybe I'll mix in sap green, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of that darker color there with some burnt sienna mixed in there. Or some, yeah, burnt sienna, actually. Burnt sienna. Maybe I'll get a little bit of that. I'll get a little bit of that green there. Again, for the shape of that white rose, like that. And then maybe some sap green here and a little bit of cadmium lemon yellow. I'll lighten it up here a little bit. Basically you can see I'm just placing the paint with my brush, and the paint is not flooding with tons of water. I'm kind of using very minimal bits of water. There are times when I'll use more water. Again, that's one of the keys to watercolor, is definitely adjusting your water amounts in your brush according to what you need on your paper. So like right now, I rinse off my brush. Maybe I want a little more water, so now I have a little bit of a puddle of water here with my cerulean blue, and then a little bit of the green, and I can do a couple splashes like that, because you need more water to do splashing, so that's when I would use a little extra water for that particular bit of wash where I do a bit of splashing. Then I can go in and maybe just lift up out of my palette that very large amount of water. And this way I don't have too much water starting to build up in the palette. So I try to be really aware of the water amount that's in my palette and on my brush. And there we go. We have it. We have it. Really some nice color and shapes developing here. We can take some blue, maybe even a little bit of raw sienna. We'll put in some raw sienna right now and cerulean blue to make a bit of a shadow color, a little more blue than the raw sienna, the gold color. And we'll do some shadowing for the rose on this side. So maybe even a little touch of red, carmine. This is actually alizarin crimson. So I could take a tiny bit of alizarin crimson and cerulean blue and even a little bit of the raw sienna and make sort of a grayish shadow color, but I wouldn't use like a Payne's gray or an ivory black to make a shadow color, like a grayish shadow color. I would mix the blue and the red and the gold to get a nice variation of a shadow. And then you can, once you have that shadow in like that, you can make it a little darker by adding a little more paint and water to that. Then you can also rinse off your brush, dry off the water off the brush. Once you rinse off the brush, you dry off some of the water so it's a clean brush. You rinse it off. Now you dried it a little bit onto a paper towel or tissue. Then you can take the brush and you can sort of smooth out that last little bit of wash around the edge there to sort of smooth out that shadow color so that it just doesn't look like a spot of paint dropped onto the paper. You smooth out that shadow so that it kind of fades into the white flowers over here. So you get that kind of nice diffused shadow that kind of just blends in. And then there's some more darker bits of shadow here I can see. So you can add in more shadow as you need to. We look carefully at the flower in the photograph, and there's some more shadow here. And again, my shadow color, I think it's going to be cerulean blue, raw sienna, and a little bit of the alizarin crimson. And there's a little bit over here too, like this. And a little more shadow there. So I think that's good. I don't want to go too overboard with too much shadow there, just enough. And then up here, let's go with our red rose. We're going to go with more of the alizarin crimson. And once we're done with the alizarin crimson and a little bit of the cadmium red, What we will key in on is a concept I mentioned a little bit earlier, but we'll mention it again in just a second. Let's start our rose though first here. We'll get a really nice, maybe a darker, so we'll have the alizarin crimson up top. I'll put some of the cadmium red on the bottom area here. So now I have the two reds. Then I'll maybe just work a little bit of some blue, French ultramarine blue, and some alizarin crimson to make it a purplish darker bit of color for the underside and the shadow side of the rose. So let's get some of the bright. We'll just go with the whole flower first. So we'll just take our brush. We'll maybe mix a little more paint. And we'll just try to get the whole flower, the beautiful red rose here. Look at this all kind of started here. I'll try to see if I can see a couple of areas where there might be some bright light, and there is. I can see some bright light within the rose. Like that. Then I'll rinse off the brush. I'll take some of that purplish French ultramarine blue mixed with some of the alizarin crimson to get like a purple. And we'll just make a darker bit of shadow on the underside of the rose here. So that gives us that nice darker shadow underneath, as you can see there in the photograph. Like that. There's also a little bit of that darker shadow there. And then what we can do is let that kind of, best thing is to let this kind of dry just a little bit before we maybe blend some of the colors in. But it is looking pretty good. I might do that. I might blend them in now. Okay, that's good. Then I'll get a little bit of the green, sap green. French ultramarine blue, I want to make a nice dark green. French ultramarine blue, sap green, a little bit of burnt sienna. And I'm going to do a little bit of the under side here of the rose. And then maybe pick up a little bit of that dark down here too. Like that. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, so what I wanted to mention before was what I'll do right now is I'll change out my water. That's very important. You want to change your water when you're doing a lot of colors like this, like you're using a lot of paint and a lot of very strong, vibrant colors. Your watercolor, your water container is going to get really, the water in there is going to get kind of muddy, and you want to make sure you keep your water container water clear as best you can. So, okay, we're going to leave that as it is. Maybe we're going to do a little bit of a like that. Okay, and there we go. And then there might be another little bit of like that. Okay, and then maybe we'll do the same thing up here. Maybe we'll just do a little bit of some blue, cerulean blue, and just make a little bit of a transition so that it's not just all white paper. We have a little bit of that transition there, a little bit of that grayish mix we had. Okay, just like that. Some creative swirling effects, you know. That's all, just a little bit, not too much of any one thing. If something starts to, if you have any problems with paint starting to bleed out or something like that into the other portions of your painting, you can just grab your tissue quick. You always have a tissue on hand when you're working, a little box of tissues with you or a paper towel. You just take it quick and lift it up and blot it just like that quickly. If you have anything else you might have added too much paint or something, you can lift it up like that. If you oversplashed with too many splashes, you can lift up your splashes as you're going quickly as you're working. But that is looking pretty good, I think, so far. A little more green here. Like that. All right, so what we're going to do now is take a quick break. We'll come back, and again, we'll talk about that idea before of mixing your paints all the way around your painting and not just having blotches of colors and then no other colors mixing around your painting that are of the same color. So you want to kind of harmonize your colors as you're working on your painting. No matter where you're working in your painting, you're always thinking, have I added some of the colors that we've used in this section of the painting? Have I added those colors down here or in other areas so that it's like a harmony of colors and not just like one bit of color and not reusing it other parts of the painting. So we'll discuss that next. Let's take a quick break. We're doing a lot of work here, and this is again an abbreviated version. We're going to do a long form video, maybe a couple hours, maybe a two-hour video. We're going to cover more of the details of going all the way through this and completing a full painting. We'll do a few more details on this painting. We'll call it a day, just so we get the idea of like how we're working here on our still lifes. Okay, all right. So give me a second. I'll be right back. All right, so we're back, and we're going to actually, again, just touch on this one idea of, since we're working in this painting, you can kind of see we have a red rose here, but we do have a red apple here. So right away we can say, we know this red rose is here, we're going to be painting a red apple here, so that will be a nice harmony. You'll have that. Background colors here that we're using, a little bit of background splashing and swirling of a little bit of light, very, very light wash. Very, very light wash. Again, you need to have very clean water in your water container when you do these light background washes on your paper so that they don't get muddy and all of a sudden you have really dark splotches of colors on the white paper that you have. You want to preserve your white paper as much as possible and use it to your advantage of having a nice bright bit of white paper to be a backdrop for your exciting colors that you're putting on your paper. So again, we're going to have the apple here. That's going to look good, but we don't have any red over here really so much in our subject matter. We have we have a green lime and a green pepper, and we have a shorebird and cappuccino cup and a mustard jar, lemon. So we have the stripes of the tablecloth, the table linen. So you could use the stripes in your table linen to actually take any colors that you have in your painting up here and then repeat them down here in the tablecloth area. So you'll actually have that advantage of, if you have something like that, some, patterns on your tablecloth, let's say, you can just take those same colors again up here and put some of them into the stripes or design of your tablecloth, and then you have your colors repeating down here. Right now, it looks like, just if we were to say, looking at this, we do have some red here. That's a red stripe going across here. It's like a orangey red, so that would be perfect. So we'd have a red stripe coming across here. I didn't draw it in on this original, but I'll add it in right now. So I'll take that red stripe, which happens to be right below the apple. So I'll go across here, and I'll just do it kind of freehand, like so. I'll come across here like so, And this is where it doesn't have to be perfect. It's a tablecloth. It's got some, it's not perfect. So that's good. All right, so we have a little bit of that, and we have another stripe back here. Let's do another stripe back here just to draw it in. And this is a little smaller of a stripe because it's further back. So we notice that as things go into the background, they're going to get a little bit smaller. They're going to diminish in size. So I'll finish this here, the stripe back here. So again, these stripes in the tablecloth will give you an extra advantage in working more of your colors all the way around your painting so that everything is harmonizing, all the colors. All right, so now we'll have that for our going forward. We'll maybe do a little more, again, negative shade painting. Those of you that are brand new, that's a new term. You'll just kind of remember that you're painting around a subject, and actually, as you paint around a subject, some subject matter, it appears by painting around it. So I'm painting around the flower up top here. Kind of working that little bit of a shadow color that's on the back of the wall. Like that. And voila, we have okay, that's good. We could add a little bit of that wash there. And then we'll take some green, sap green here, a little bit of French ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt sienna, and we'll put a couple of leaf forms here. And again, I'm going to do these kind of quickly. We're going to move a little quicker now. I'll try to just go at a faster pace, just so we can get through, again, the preliminary workings of our still life painting. And I think that's pretty good. Maybe a little bit of shadow, a little bit of raw sienna and cerulean blue, and a touch of alizarin crimson, and maybe just a little bit of shadowing, like that. Looks like that needs a little bit of coolness, a little more blue. A little more red too, needs a little more red. Like that. That's our shadows, and then I rinse off my brush, dry off the water off the brush with a tissue, and then I can just sort of lift off that paint and just blend it in like that, just so it has a little bit of a shadow there. Like that. Okay, good. Now we will work some of our darker stems, sap green, burnt sienna, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, predominantly sap green. Okay, and I'll just do some dark like that. Then I'll take some blue, cerulean blue, with some sap green here, and I'll make a few lighter stems so that they're not really all dark. Maybe some of them are lighter, like that. I'll take some more cerulean blue, and I might just make a little bit of a feeling of glass here, like a glass jar. I'll go across in some places. I'll go down here like so. Glass jars are a little bit opaque, mostly. I'll take the shadows underneath the ribs of the top of the mason jar. This is a mason jar actually. So I'll put some blue underneath the rim and the actual threads of the glass jar. And then you can go back in and just add a couple of darks if you want, like so. But I think that's pretty good. A little bit of blue. Maybe we'll add just in a little bit of the mustard jar. There's some beautiful ornamentation on the jar. I'll just add that on there with some raw sienna in there. Another opportunity here to add some different colors. Some red too. We'll put in some red and yellow into the colors there. Like that. And I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to go too much detail. If I try to do exactly what I see there, it's going to be too much detail and I'll get, bogged down with trying to do too much of that detail. So better off that I kind of get some of the detail on here, not all of it, just a little bit of it. And that's all I would need, like that. And that's pretty much good. And then again, I can just take some of the blue, gold, and a little bit of the red, alizarin crimson. I can make a bit of a shadow here on the cappuccino cup, like that. That's in shadow. I added a little bit more alizarin crimson in there. And then I go right around here for the shadowing of that. That's fine. And there's a decent shadow there in the top of the cappuccino cup. So I will put a shadow in the top of the cappuccino cup. It looks like it's a little darker. So I'll add a little more paint. Like that. Toward the bottom. That looks good. And again, for simplicity, we're going to just kind of add a few more things. Let's do the red apple. Let's have a fun time here. I'll finish up going a little bit faster now. I hope you don't mind. I'll add some green to that red that we mixed. And I'll start out my apple with that kind of like a bit of a, it looks like a dull red, but we're going to add some of that really nice alizarin crimson in there. A little bit of the blue for shadow under here, like that. And then some cadmium red. I'll leave a bit of a highlight on the apple here, like that. Maybe another bit here. I'll get a raw sienna and cerulean blue, and I'll try to do a shadow right away for the apple, like this. I want to infuse that all right underneath the apple at one time so that it all kind of blends in. You could take a bit of a tissue and do a little bit of reflected light if you want. That's just simply taking a tissue and kind of rolling it up into like a smaller bit like a small bunch like that, like a bunch like that. You could even start, I would even start with a new tissue. Let me see if I have. So what I'll do is I'll take the tissue and I'll just kind of fold it up like this. Like that. And then you could take it and just kind of fold it up into like a small section like that. Like that. And then you could just go in and just do a little bit of, you could touch it a few times just for some reflected light. Sometimes light bounces off the tablecloth up onto the apple on the underside, so that's fine. You can do it that way. That's a good way to do it, especially as long as you do it right away when you're painting. You don't want to wait too long to do that. Okay, then now this is the core of the apple, so we'll do a little bit of green and burnt sienna maybe. Burnt umber. Maybe I'll just do a little bit of a dark there. A little bit of some blue. So I add some blue, burnt sienna, just to get a little bit of a dark there, maybe some more red in there. Just so we have that bit of the core of the apple there. And from this point, we'll just do a quick, let's do the lemon. We'll take the cadmium yellow lemon and just get a whole bunch of it right on the brush. Just a damp brush, and I dip it right in straight into the paint, and I just do the whole lemon like so. I'll leave a bit of light on the lemon right there, like a highlight, and I'll just come right around. Like so. Then I'll get some of the cadmium yellow, which is more of an orangey yellow, a warmer yellow. Maybe I'll put that here, going through the center area of the lemon. All at the same time and all kind of quickly. We don't want to wait too long to infuse other colors into a wash. We want to kind of get that done quickly. And then a little bit of cerulean blue. And just a little bit of a shadow there like that. And then I dampen my brush. Maybe to lighten that up a little bit. It was maybe a little bit too dark. Then we go with, again, the same thing, raw sienna and cerulean blue. Maybe a little bit of red. And we try to get the shadow all at the same time, just like that. For the lemon. So the lemon, same thing as the apple. We try to infuse the shadow underneath right away as we're painting it. I might go with raw sienna. And I'll just get a little bit of some shadowing here in the mustard jar. Damp brush. Looks pretty good. And let's do one more. Let's paint the lime. So we're going to take green, sap green straight out of the palette. Not much water at all, just a damp brush. That's all the water you would need. Add a little bit of the tiny bit of the French ultramarine blue. And let's get our lime going here. I'll do the same thing. I will leave a highlight on the lime. There. I'm going a little quicker than I might normally paint. Okay. And for shadow, maybe some French ultramarine blue, raw sienna, a little bit of red. Like that. I pick pick up a little bit of this with some blue, maybe some cerulean blue. A little bit of extra water and a couple of splashes over here on this side. Like that. All right, now you kind of get the feel for the process of, we did the drawing, we created the preliminary sketch, the contour drawing, the darker drawing over the top, pencil drawing. Once we had that done, then we were kind of just getting in and noticing that we're doing the alla prima method. We're painting everything at one time. And then we were starting out with the darker paint, the darker tonal values of the darker colors to start out with our leaf forms in our bouquet. We started at the bouquet because we find that the bouquet is kind of like the main focal point of the painting, although we like to have our eye move around the painting and find all these other interesting things in our painting too as well. So we wouldn't want it just to be, or it could be just a flower bouquet that you paint. That's fine too. But we like to, maybe we're going to just kind of go a little extra and put some more interesting objects into our composition here. So then we just talked about how, you know, we want to harmonize those colors if we can. So for harmonizing colors, certainly we can come across here and put the tablecloth with a little bit of that red. And then as you can see, if we do that, we mix in a little other colors in there too. It doesn't have to all. We could have some, a good idea would be to put some gold in there too. That would tie in the yellow lemon with a little bit of lemon yellow in the stripe there. So you can add some different colors like that, but mostly red. This would be the red stripe. So, and you can add more red in there. Okay, so, and then we could add the green pepper. A little bit of French ultramarine blue for the bottom of the pepper. Looks like this would be the darker part of the pepper too as well. And a little bit of shadow on the pepper. Red, blue, gold. Bit of a shadow there for the pepper. And then we can do a bit of our shorebird. We can so we'll make a little bit of a stand here for the, and again, I'm using all the same colors. I'm not trying to add any new colors that we haven't used before. So that's kind of the key. Once you start with maybe 6 or 8 colors, you would try to kind of stick with those same colors. And then we'll finish up by doing our Okay. You can always find different ways to maybe if you want to paint this line a little straighter on the shorebird, you could always put a small piece of tape on there to get a straighter line if you wanted to, or you can touch it up now. I can touch this up with white paint later to tighten, touch up that straight line a little bit if I needed to, if I wanted to sort of make it a little more defined. And then maybe a little bit of blue just to there, and then maybe a touch of blue like we were talking about before, maybe a bit of color there. Negative shape painting. I paint around the cappuccino handle, and then the cappuccino handle appears. I paint around the pedestal for this shorebird, and it appears. And then we can just pretend that this is actually a shadow going across here. That might be from the flowers across the painting. So across the tablecloth, I should say. All right, so that is really maybe a little bit of shadow on the right there. A little bit of shadow on our mustard jar here, like so. Like that, and that needs a shadow too. Burnt raw sienna, cerulean blue, a little bit of red. Rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the paint. Smooth out the wash there. Okay, and then this is kind of drying already here. I'll tell you what, we'll do one more break just to let whatever's here right now dry a little bit, and then we'll finish up because I think I want to wait for a few of these areas to dry before I go in and do those final little bit of touch-ups. And again, we're not doing the whole entire painting. If we were doing the whole entire painting, obviously I would finish up all the stripes of the tablecloth, and I would do maybe some more work to some of the other items here that we have, and maybe even some more work to the flowers. But for right now, we just wanted to cover the basics of it, of how we're getting through this whole entire composition, our still life composition. And then again, we're going to come back in a month or so, or a little while later, in the next couple months or so, and we'll go over a real detailed video where we're going to cover maybe 2 hours of everything again, just like this, but we're going to do the whole entire painting from start to finish, every detail, the whole 9 yards. Okay. But for right now, I'll let this dry a little bit, and then we'll come right back and just finish up the few last things we'd want to finish up for this video. Okay. So we'll be right back in a few. All right, so let's start wrapping everything up here for this video anyway, and it's really great. I'm glad you joined along here. We had a lot of fun. We're painting flower painting, still life, lots of interesting colors, shapes, all different kinds of subject matter, flowers and birds and fruit and vegetables and cups, and we just had a lot of fun. We're going to just finish up. I'll do a few things here just to kind of get everything 75% complete anyway. So I'll take a smaller brush now. Sometimes when you have smaller details, you'll have to use a smaller brush. So I'll just get the beak of the bird here, the shorebird. I'll use a smaller brush for that. And maybe the eye too. We'll just do a smaller brush for that. And we'll do a little bit of the wing, maybe the darker part of the wing here. We'll do the wing here like so. So we'll do a little bit of the wing of the bird, shorebird here like that. And it's got a little bit of a blend that in a little bit. Maybe a little bit of shadow here. Might be a little bit of a shadow here, so I'll just put a little bit there. All right, and then again, smaller brush. Maybe just to have a little bit of a shadow there. Maybe a little bit of blue in that shadow there. And there's probably a bit of a shadow here. And I think that looks pretty good. I thought maybe a little bit of blue, brown, almost like a French ultramarine blue and burnt umber. That's close to a black, very close to the black dark, very, very dark. And we'll do a little bit of the wire on the mason jar. Maybe just a little bit of a... like this, just maybe a little. Like that. And... I thought, yeah, we would do a little bit of white. So usually I'll use titanium white in a tube, just straight titanium white in a tube. And I add a little bit of yellow ochre or raw sienna. And I just put a little bit of that raw sienna or yellow ochre on the top of the tube of the paint. That just makes the paint a little bit warmer, like in color, versus just the stark white of the tube paint without any kind of tint in it. And then for that, we can just... again, if you have any areas that you might need to touch up with a little bit of white paint, you can just do that. If you found there's a few spots you want to touch up a little bit. And I think that's pretty good. I will also... we'll do the stem here. Sometimes we'll... a little bit of green, burnt umber green, a little bit of blue. I'll just maybe create the stem here for the apple. Like that. You can blend in a little bit of the yellow. If you find one of your highlights is too large in shape or size or something, you can always just blend in a little bit of the you take a damp brush, dry off a little bit of the water, and then just with a damp brush you can soften up some of those bright lights to tone them down just a little bit if you want. And maybe there's a little shadow over here, so a little bit of blue. Maybe I'll just do one here. I'll just use the kind of the bluish green under here as a shadow, like that. little bit of this darker dark, maybe. And I think that's it. All right, so we had a really, again, a fun time. Let's get back in a couple months or so. We will do another, like, really comprehensive video on still life paintings. But I hope this covers the real, meat and potatoes of what we do, how we do it, the progressions of going through the whole entire composition from start to finish. So we did everything from A to Z, finishing touches right now. We just put in. So this is pretty much everything. And then again, we can spend a little more time finishing out some of the other areas that we didn't on this painting. But this gives you plenty of ideas to kind of like formulate in your mind of how you're going to go about doing a still life, basically the basic format of it all from start to finish. So thank you so much for, again, coming by. I just wanted to mention quick at the end of the video here, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, especially if you're brand new. Don't miss a thing. Stick with us here. We work every week after week, month after month, year after year, creating new videos on YouTube. And as well, I cover lots of other types of subject matter, everything watercolor. So we'll do landscapes, seascapes, boat paintings, still life paintings like this. We'll do a little tiny bit of portrait painting once in a while, figures. We do pretty much everything street scenes. So anything you like, watercolor, we're going to cover all the basic classic watercolor paintings that you could ever imagine on my channel on a constant basis. Again, all of the time we're getting together every week. And also, too, I have hundreds of paintings and videos on my YouTube channel in my archives. So if you ever want to check out my archives, you'll notice that there's hundreds of paintings. There's probably 50 flower painting videos, 50 landscape videos, 50 seascape videos, boat paintings, everything, and lots of videos. So you can go back and also brush up on some of the other stuff that I've done in the past, which I basically do the same thing all of the time. I cover as much detail as I can in my videos, so you don't have to be scratching your head and wondering what to do. I'll cover all of it, and then we'll also demonstrate it and get it done here. Okay, so we'll see you on the next video. Great to paint with you. See you soon. Bye-bye.